picture this. It's 1997.
Okay.
You're logging onto the internet, which, let's be honest, everyone jokingly called the World Wide Wait back then.
Oh, totally. The dial-up tones, the incredibly slow image loading. I mean, it was rough.
It was so rough.
Yeah.
But there's this 30-year-old guy, Jeff Bezos, and he's looking at internet usage growing at something crazy like 2,300% a year.
Right, which is just an astronomical number.
Exactly. So he quits his incredibly cushy Wall Street job, gets a $300,000 loan from his parents, and decides to start an online bookstore.
Which seemed, frankly, kind of nuts at the time.
Very nuts. But obviously we know how that turned out. And for this deep dive, we are pulling apart exactly how he took that bookstore and turned it into the everything store. We're using Steve Anderson's book, The Bezos Letters.
Yeah, and this book is fascinating because Anderson essentially spent time analyzing 21 years of Amazon's shareholder letter.
That's a lot of reading.
A lot of reading. But he managed to extract 14 basically hidden in plain sight growth principles from all those letters. But I do want to establish the mission for our deep dive today, because this isn't just a history lesson about a tech giant.
No, not at all.
We are really trying to decode a universal formula for scaling practically any endeavor. So whether you are managing a multinational corporation or, a local team of 5 people, or even just trying to scale a side hustle out of your garage,
Right.
these principles actually apply because what they demand is that you fundamentally alter your relationship with risk, your relationship with failure, and your relationship with time.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand that explosive trillion-dollar growth, you really have to start with that altered relationship with failure.
You do?
Because the standard corporate playbook, right, it dictates that risk is a hazard.
Yeah, it's a liability.
Exactly. You mitigate it, you avoid it, or you buy insurance against it. But what Anderson found in these letters is just this completely inverted mindset. Like, we all know ROI, right? Return on investment.
Right, everyone knows ROI.
But the framework Amazon uses relies on RAR.
Yeah.
Return on risk. It's actually the very first principle in the book. Encourage successful failure.
And I mean, the phrase successful failure feels like a total paradox until you actually look at the mechanics of how complex systems evolve.
Right.
A really good parallel for this, actually, outside of the business world, is the history of space exploration. Like, if you look at the early days of NASA.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so the Apollo program suffered this just absolute national tragedy in 1967 with Apollo 1.
Oh, right. The fire.
Yeah. During a pre-flight test, there was a flash fire in the command module, and it killed astronauts Gus Grissom, Ed White, and Roger Chaffee. Just a devastating loss.
And, the natural bureaucratic response to a tragedy of that massive magnitude is usually to just freeze, right?
Absolutely.
You point fingers, you bury the project in endless safety committees, and that eventually just completely kills the momentum.
But NASA actually took a different route. The flight director at the time, Gene Kranz, he addressed his team and instituted this massive cultural reset. It became known as the Kranz Dictum.
The Kranz Dictum.
Right. And he basically declared that from that day forward, mission control would be known by 2 words: tough and competent.
Tough and competent.
Because they realized they had been gambling with the schedule, they'd been kind of ignoring systemic warning signs. So this massive failure forced a brutal systemic overhaul in their entire engineering and problem-solving methodology.
And that cultural shift gets severely tested just 3 years later.
Yeah.
1970, Apollo 13.
Exactly.
So, an oxygen tank explodes halfway to the moon. The crew is in mortal danger. But because their culture had been forged in the fires of Apollo 1, they actually had the psychological and technical infrastructure to rapidly improvise.
Right, they didn't freeze up.
Exactly. They adapted the life support systems literally on the fly, and they brought those astronauts home alive. And the commander, Jim Lovell, he famously called that mission a successful failure.
Yeah.
Because, they didn't hit their primary objective of landing on the moon, but the disaster they managed to avert made it this incredible triumph of engineering resilience.
Which brings us directly back to Amazon, actually. Specifically, their $178 million write-off.
Oh man, the Fire Phone.
The Fire Phone. So this launched in 2014, and it was just a colossal
I just flipped
flop.
It was so bad.
It really was. It was packed with all these gimmick features, like these 3D dynamic perspective cameras that absolutely no one was asking for.
No one wanted that.
And the market rejected it instantly.
But wait, losing $178 million sounds like a disaster, not a success. Standard operating procedure for a public company taking a hit like that is You fire the team, you dismantle the hardware division, and you spend months doing damage control.
Right, that's what Wall Street expects. But internally, Bezos viewed that massive financial loss as a success because they salvaged the wreckage.
Salvaged it how?
So they took the advanced microphone technology and the really sophisticated voice recognition software that they built for that failed phone, and they funneled it directly into a secret internal project.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And that technology birthed the Echo and the Alexa voice assistant.
Wait, really? Alexa came from the Fire phone?
It did. The phone failed, but the underlying technology that it basically subsidized went on to create a multi-billion-dollar smart speaker industry, which Amazon then dominated. That is the essence of return on risk.
Okay, so it's like treating failure not as a mistake, but as a mandatory R&D budget line item.
Yes, exactly.
You're just paying tuition to learn what the market actually wants.
That's a great way to put it.
And there's another example from the source material, too, with Amazon auctions and Z-shops.
Oh, yeah, those were early on.
Right.
Okay.
They tried to build this auction site to fight eBay, and it just totally failed.
Right.
Then they tried allowing third-party sellers to have separate little storefronts. They called them Z-shops. And that failed, too. But they used all the friction data from those failures to realize, hey, customers just want the best price right on the main product page.
They don't want to hunt for it.
Exactly. And that direct realization led to the creation of Amazon Marketplace. And today, third-party sellers account for, 58% of Amazon's unit sales?
It's a huge chunk of their business.
But I do have to push back here for a second.
Sure.
Because it is really easy to absorb a $178 million failure or multiple failed e-commerce platforms when you have Amazon's balance sheet.
Fair point.
If you're a small business owner and you try to quote-unquote fail successfully, you don't magically get a smart speaker. You just go bankrupt.
Okay, that is a really critical distinction to make because the principle isn't about the absolute dollar amount. It's about scaling the risk proportionally to your resources.
Proportional risk. Okay.
Right. So for Amazon, a $178 million loss was survivable tuition. They could afford it. For a local bakery, a successful failure isn't, mortgaging the entire building to open a second location that's completely untested.
Right, that would be a terrible idea.
It would be disastrous. For the bakery, proportional risk is maybe risking $500 on a highly localized ad campaign, or testing a radically different menu item on a slow Tuesday.
Oh, I see.
The psychological mechanic is absolutely identical. You are intentionally deploying capital that you can afford to lose in order to buy hard data about what your market actually values.
Right, buying data.
Yeah. And if you are not failing occasionally, your risk profile is calibrated far too conservatively. You're basically leaving growth on the table.
Okay, so if you've established this culture where failure is essentially pre-funded through an R&D mindset, what is the actual engine driving the growth? Because you can't just fail indefinitely, right?
Right, obviously not.
You have to deploy that freedom toward a specific target. And the letters suggest merging two specific principles here: betting on big ideas and obsessing over customers.
And the really operative word in that second principle is obsess.
Obsess.
Yeah, it's not listening to customers or focusing on them. Listening implies that you're just reacting to a complaint. Obsession implies proactive invention.
And the evolution of Amazon Prime illustrates the mechanics of this perfectly.
It really does.
Because today, 2-day shipping is just a baseline consumer expectation. We all expect it. But back in the early 2000s, shipping costs were the single highest psychological barrier in e-commerce.
Oh, absolutely.
A customer would load $50 worth of books into their cart, they'd get to the checkout screen, see a $12 shipping fee, and just instantly close the browser.
Cart abandonment was a massive issue.
So Amazon first attempted to lower this friction with Super Saver shipping, which was free shipping on orders over $25.
And what they were doing there was testing a hypothesis. They were asking, will customers fundamentally alter their purchasing behavior just to cross a free shipping threshold?
And the data proved they totally would.
Yeah, customers would actively add extra items to their cart just to avoid that perceived penalty of the shipping fee.
So seeing that massive behavioral shift, they placed a really big bet in 2005. They launched Prime.
$79 a year.
Right, $79 a year for unlimited fast free shipping. And Wall Street analysts brutally criticized this move. They were claiming it was going to completely bankrupt the company because Amazon was eating these staggering logistical costs.
But see, Wall Street was looking at the immediate logistical expense. The company was looking at the psychology of friction.
Right.
Their intuition was that if you entirely remove the mental calculation of shipping costs for every single order, a customer stops viewing you as an occasional bookstore and starts viewing you as a utility.
A utility,
Right.
like water or electricity.
Exactly. You start buying toothpaste, batteries, dog food. The friction just drops to absolute zero. And recent metrics completely validate that bet. Prime members spend roughly $1,400 a year compared to about $600 for non-members.
That's a massive difference.
Yeah.
And they apply that exact same obsession with removing friction to their own internal infrastructure too, which is what birthed Amazon Web Services or AWS.
Oh, AWS is such a fascinating story.
Because early on, Amazon's internal IT department was this monolithic gatekeeper. If a software team wanted to test a new feature, they had to submit a request to IT, wait literally months for physical servers to be purchased, racked, and configured.
The bureaucracy was just choking their deployment speed.
So what do they do?
Well, the solution came from kind of an unexpected source. Bezos was really influenced by a book called Creation by Steve Gran. And the book explores how complex artificial life in video games can be built from simple modular building blocks. So the revelation was that Amazon's IT shouldn't be a gatekeeper that approves projects. It should be decentralized. They realized they needed to create digital primitives like raw computing power, basic storage, and databases that were accessible via really simple APIs.
So instead of a 6-month procurement cycle, a developer just writes a line of code and instantly provisions a server.
Exactly.
And they built this decentralized infrastructure to solve their own internal bottlenecks, but then they realized, wait a minute, every other company on Earth has this exact same IT bottleneck.
Yep. So they packaged it, sold it as cloud computing, and AWS essentially became the silent backbone of the modern internet. I mean, Airbnb, Pinterest, Netflix, they all run on Amazon servers. But what's fascinating here is how this transitions from just solving problems to proactive invention.
How so?
There's this story from the 2012 shareholder letter. It's often referred to as the Casablanca story, and it highlights this shift perfectly.
Okay, let's hear it.
So a customer was renting the classic movie Casablanca on Amazon's streaming service. But at the time, streaming technology was pretty clunky.
Yeah, I remember those days.
The video kept freezing, buffering, the resolution kept dropping. It was an objectively terrible viewing experience.
But the customer didn't call support, right? They didn't write an angry email or anything.
No, they just accepted that this was how streaming worked in 2012.
So is invention just waiting for the customer to figure out what they hate and then fixing it?
No, because in this case, the customer didn't even complain. But the following morning, that customer received an unsolicited email from Amazon.
Unsolicited?
Yeah. It stated that their automated systems had noticed the user experienced poor video playback while watching Casablanca. It apologized for the friction and informed them that a refund had already been proactively issued to their credit card.
Wow.
And no human customer service agent was even involved.
That is a total wow moment. But I mean, is there a massive financial vulnerability in that model?
What do you mean?
Well, if you automate refunds before a customer even asks, and you eat millions in logistical costs to subsidize free shipping with Prime, your quarterly margins just vanish. And Wall Street actively punishes companies that prioritize invisible customer goodwill over tangible 90-day profit.
That is true, and it raises an incredibly important question. It's actually the crux of Principle 5. Apply long-term thinking.
Long-term thinking.
Yeah, because you cannot place billion-dollar infrastructure bets or proactively refund revenue if you are terrified of your next quarterly earnings call. You have to radically stretch your operational timeline.
Right.
And Bezos physically embodied this philosophy by investing $42 million into what he called the 10,000-year clock.
Oh, I've heard of this.
Yeah, it's a project deep inside a Texas mountain initiated by this computer scientist, Danny Hillis.
Right. It's a mechanical clock designed to tick just once a year.
Exactly.
The century hand moves every 100 years, and a cuckoo emerges every millennium.
Which sounds a bit crazy.
It does. But it isn't just a vanity project. It's a monument built to force humanity to essentially ask, are we being good ancestors?
That's the core of it.
And when you stretch your mental horizon from 90 days out to 10,000 years, your definition of a good decision changes completely.
And contrast that timeline with the broader financial market. Look at Apple in 2018. They simply announced that they were going to stop reporting quarterly sales numbers for individual iPhones.
Which makes sense.
Their reasoning was completely sound. A 90-day window does not accurately reflect the long-term health or the trajectory of a hardware ecosystem.
But the market punished them instantly for that.
Brutally.
Apple's stock dropped almost 7% in a single day. They wiped out $71 billion in market value simply because they refused to feed Wall Street's addiction to short-term data.
But see, Amazon trained its investors to expect a different timeline from the very beginning. During the dot-com crash in the year 2000, Amazon's stock was totally decimated. It plummeted by 80%.
80%. Financial media was openly mocking them. They were running headlines calling them Amazon.toast and Amazon.bomb.
And an 80% drop would trigger absolute panic inside almost any boardroom.
Oh, heads would roll.
But the shareholder letter that year completely ignored the stock price.
Really?
Ignored it completely. It focused entirely on the underlying business metrics. Customer accounts were growing. Revenue was compounding. Their score on the American Customer Satisfaction Index was the highest ever recorded for a service company.
So they were looking at the actual engine, not the speedometer.
Exactly. And Bezos quoted the legendary investor Benjamin Graham in that letter. He said, "In the short term, the stock market is a voting machine. In the long term, it's a weighing machine."
The voting machine is driven by emotion, panic, short-term trends.
Right.
But the weighing machine measures actual fundamental substance.
Yes.
And the letters detail exactly how they built that fundamental weight, which is Principle 6, understand your flywheel.
And the flywheel concept, it actually comes from Jim Collins' management research.
Oh, from good to great.
Yes. It's basically a self-reinforcing loop. And Amazon's specific flywheel starts with lower prices.
Okay.
Lower prices fundamentally improve the customer experience. A better experience naturally drives more traffic to the site. Increased traffic attracts third-party sellers who want access to all those buyers.
That makes sense.
Right, and more sellers organically expand the selection of products. That massive scale then dramatically lowers Amazon's cost structure. And here's the key. Instead of taking those lower costs as profit, they feed it directly back into lower prices, spinning the entire loop faster.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Think of pushing a massive, heavy revolving door at an old hotel.
Okay, I can picture that.
Initially, it takes your entire body weight just to move it a fraction of an inch. It requires immense exertion for zero perceived payoff. But you keep pushing.
Right.
As it turns, it gathers momentum.
Yeah.
And eventually, it is spinning with such force that a toddler could push it with one finger.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
The accumulated momentum does all the work. And once you map out the specific gears of your flywheel like that, every strategic decision becomes a simple binary question. Does this acquisition or feature push the wheel?
And you can see that perfectly if you look at the mechanics of their $13.4 billion acquisition of Whole Foods.
Because a lot of people thought that was a weird pivot.
Right. But it was not a random pivot into the grocery sector. It was a highly calculated shove to the flywheel.
How so?
Well, Whole Foods instantly added premium selection. It provided a physical network of local distribution hubs, which allowed Amazon to install pickup lockers, and that drove convenience and customer experience.
Pushing the wheel.
Exactly. And the very first operational change they made when they bought it was dropping the prices on staples like avocados and salmon.
Right, trying to shed that whole paycheck reputation.
Exactly. Directly feeding the lower prices gear of the flywheel.
But operating on a 10,000-year timeline and spinning a massive flywheel creates a new problem, which is mass. As organizations gain that kind of weight, gravity takes over.
Oh, yeah, the bureaucracy sets in.
Right. They inevitably choke on their own red tape.
Yeah.
Every strategic move suddenly requires a committee, a subcommittee, 6 months of alignment meetings.
It's awful.
How do you maintain high velocity without the entire structure just collapsing on itself?
Well, you have to systematically categorize how humans make decisions. This brings us to Principle 7. Generate high-velocity decisions.
Okay, how does that work?
The framework divides choices into two distinct categories. Type 1 decisions are one-way doors.
One-way doors.
Yeah. They are highly consequential and practically irreversible. If you walk through a Type 1 door and realize it was a mistake, you cannot easily get back.
Like what?
Like building a massive new fulfillment center, making a multi-billion-dollar acquisition, or radically changing your core pricing structure. Those are one-way doors.
Then you have type 2 decisions. And these are two-way doors.
Right.
They are entirely reversible. It's kind of like setting a save point in a video game before walking into a boss fight.
Yeah.
If you lose, you just respawn. The cost of being wrong is essentially zero. So testing a new website layout offering a localized service tier, tweaking an algorithm. If it fails, yeah, just roll it back.
And the fatal flaw of scaling companies is that leadership begins treating every single type 2 decision as if it were a type 1 one-way door.
Because you're scared?
Exactly. The sheer size of the company makes executives terrified of any misstep, so they demand absolute certainty for everything. And that requirement for a 100% certainty completely paralyzes invention.
And the sources outline a specific rule to combat this.
Yeah.
You act when you have 70% of the information you wish you had.
The 70% rule, yes.
Waiting for 90 or 100% certainty guarantees you are moving too slowly. And to actually execute on that 70%, they rely on a cultural norm called disagree and commit.
Which is huge.
You don't need unanimous consensus. You don't need everyone in the room to hold hands and agree the idea is flawless. You just need someone to say, hey, I think this hypothesis is wrong, but it's a two-way door, so I'll gamble with you. Let's deploy it.
Right, it completely bypasses months of defensive arguing.
But when a decision is categorized as type 1, when it is an irreversible, highly consequential move, the methodology flips entirely.
It does.
Amazon has this famously counterintuitive protocol for one-way doors.
Yeah.
They outright ban PowerPoint presentations.
No PowerPoint allowed.
None. Whoever is pitching the idea has to write a 6-page narrative. It must be written in complete prose-style paragraphs detailing the context, the proposed solution, a future press release, and a rigorous FAQ.
And the meeting itself doesn't start with a pitch.
No.
The highest paid executives in the room sit in total silence for up to 30 minutes reading this printed document like a high school study hall.
See, I have to push back hard on this.
Okay, why?
Making highly paid executives sit in total silence for 30 minutes reading an essay sounds like the absolute opposite of high velocity. It sounds excruciatingly slow.
I know, it really does. But it is the ultimate paradox of slowing down to speed up, and it relies entirely on human psychology. Think about the mechanics of a standard corporate PowerPoint meeting. PowerPoint is inherently performative. A charismatic presenter can gloss over massive logical gaps with a slick chart and a few bullet points.
Oh, totally. We've all seen that.
And the executives in the room frequently haven't read the pre-meeting materials, so they interrupt with questions on slide 2 that are actually answered on slide 10.
Which derails the whole thing.
Right. And the meeting ends with vague alignment, no actual decision, and a follow-up meeting scheduled for next month.
It is an illusion of work.
Exactly. Prose, however, forces absolute clarity of thought. You cannot hide a flawed strategy in a 6-page narrative because prose requires you to connect point A to point B with actual verbs and logical causality.
That makes a lot of sense.
It takes weeks of drafting and peer review just to write a good 6-pager. So by forcing everyone to read it in silence during the meeting, you guarantee that every single person has deep, shared, high-resolution context.
So everyone is on exactly the same page. Literally.
Literally. The discussion that follows that silence is intensely focused. They are not wasting time clarifying basic facts. They are aggressively probing the actual structural risks of the idea.
Wow.
So by intentionally slowing down to intensely scrutinize an irreversible type 1 decision, you prevent catastrophic errors and you eliminate months of useless follow-up meetings. So the overall operational velocity of the company actually increases.
So what does this all mean? We have decoded a massive amount of operational architecture from these shareholder letters today.
We really have.
We started with the concept of return on risk treating failure not as a disaster, but as amortized R&D.
Right.
We looked at obsessive, proactive invention, like fixing the customer's streaming video before they even knew they needed a refund.
Proactive obsession.
We discussed stretching your operational timeline to act like a good ancestor, ignoring the short-term voting machine of Wall Street to spin your own heavy flywheel.
And the momentum that creates.
And finally, categorizing your decisions into one-way and two-way doors. Forcing logical rigor for the heavy choices while moving aggressively on the reversible ones.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it becomes incredibly clear that these aren't just parlor tricks for trillion-dollar tech conglomerates.
No, not at all.
Whether you are managing a small regional team, scaling a side hustle from your garage, or simply navigating the trajectory of your own career, these are foundational blueprints for sustainable momentum.
Because it's about human nature.
Yes. Human nature is fundamentally static. We naturally fear failure. We naturally prioritize short-term comfort over long-term value. And we naturally paralyze ourselves with the demand for absolute certainty.
Right.
The principles extracted from these letters are essentially a psychological operating system designed to override those natural human flaws.
Which brings us back to where we started. A 30-year-old taking a massive, unproven risk on the internet back in 1997. He didn't have all the answers. He didn't have 100% certainty, but he categorized the risk, saw a two-way door, and he walked through it anyway.
And that made all the difference.
It really did. So I want to leave you with a highly specific question to mull over today. Look critically at your own life, your current career path, or your business. What is a strategic decision you are facing right now that is actually a type 2, two-way door, a decision with a respawn point, but you are agonizing over it, delaying it, and analyzing it as if it were an irreversible type 1 decision?
That's a great question.
What would happen to your momentum if you just walked through that door today with only 70% of the information? Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the source material. Keep questioning the consensus, keep experimenting, and keep diving deep.